Welcome one, welcome all to Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe, Episode 2, the second episode. On the last episode, we started our network, built a sideline hub, our first one. Today, we're going to be expanding the network to run around the island and make a new junction that connects a main line to a main line. But before we can get to all of that, I gotta lay the tracks first. And now we can connect this new rail line to the main line. Now last episode we built a sideline hub that connects a sideline to the main line and gives the main line trains priority. Today we're going to be building a backbone hub which connects a main line to a main line and does its best to mix traffic in without causing too many backups. But since this is still a one line both ways, it's not going to be too complex and there's not going to be much proper mixing going on yet. Would you look at that? It's done! We get to label it BBH Backbone Hub 01. And it's a 2-for-1 special today because we're also going to be building a main station hub. Now a main station hub is pretty much just a backbone hub where one pair of tracks in the intersection leads towards a station. And it can be a little more complicated than that. Sometimes you'll split them into two, or they won't be a complete all-direction intersection. In this case, we're going to have one side of the main station hub outputting traffic into the station, and then further down the line, we're going to have the second half of the main station hub that picks that traffic back up onto the main line in the same direction that it was output from. So in the end, it'll kind of look like a truck stop or a rest stop, where it only serves one side of the main line. And there we have it. MSH Main Station Hub 01A and MSH 01B. Now we can see our trains zipping around, having tons of fun in our cool network. Now we can add a bit more of an extension to the network so we can start taking all the goods from the factory that we've been creating by supplying livestock and grain from last episode. And we sort of come to this point where there's a large ocean in the way. But I had planned this from the start. I wanted to do a cool bridge, a sequence of bridges crossing this large body of water here, this inlet gulf thing. And this actually ends up nearly bankrupting us because bridges are pretty expensive and so is raising land out of the ocean. But in the end, it looks pretty cool. See, it looks pretty cool. Now if you're wondering why I double up the bridges, whether you can see there's two for each direction, that's because in the standard Open Transport Tycoon, you can't place signals on bridges, so it creates a long signal gap, and the way you work around that is by doubling up bridges. That way, if one train is on one side of the bridge, the next incoming train can take the other bridge instead. And now that we've crossed that huge body of water, I'm going to hook this up to the part of the main line that we built earlier and make another backbone hub. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to route these tracks straight up the side of a mountain, but I do my best to work it into the terrain and not disturb too much of the natural landscape. And now I'll start building Backbone Hub 2. It's a 3-for-1 this episode. I can't believe it. And it's finished. BBH Backbone Hub 02, the second one. And once again, I'm going to reroute some of the tracks I had laid before to get a more natural flowing line around the landscape. And now that that's all finished, we can take a look at our full network. Now forgive me because our tracks are blue on a purple background on blue water, so it's not easy to see. I do change the color here. From now on, we are orange. And you can see we kind of have a double loop network. There's a lot of different things you can consider when planning a network. I chose a double loop rather than a point-to-point straight line network because it makes it easier to balance trains later on. And since the mainline expansion has been taken care of, we can start deciding what we're going to do with the aforementioned goods from that factory. I'm choosing to make a station, a drop station, at this town that we used earlier, last episode in the Moneymaker. This will be the station where we take all of our factory goods. And you can see they really don't like us after laying down all that track and doing whatever, so we have to spam trees and get them to like us again. And now that they like us again, I can clean up the old Moneymaker station and build a new factory goods drop station. And we actually get to make another main station hub. That's 4 junctions in one episode. And I'm going to be making this in the same style as the other main station hub we've made, where the first half outputs traffic into the station, and the other half inputs that traffic back onto the main line. And here I decide to redo the original factory station that drops grain and livestock. Instead of a terminus design, I went with a row, as I described in episode 1. I think it'll better disperse the trains through the network instead of just having them coming in the same way they come out. And now we can start making the station that picks up goods that are produced by the factory. And now this is another problem like the farms where they produce 2 resources, you want 2 separate stations. In this case, you're going to want one station that drops primary resources into the factory and one station that picks up the produced goods out of the factory. This solves an issue where goods trains waiting to pick up goods from the factory clog up the station, not allowing any primary resources to enter the station to produce goods in the first place. And now we can finish hooking up Main Station Hub 2 back to the main line. And there it is. Main Station Hub MSH 02A and Main Station Hub 02B. And I got another tip. If you want to really flood your line with trains, go for the goods route. For every one train full of primary resources delivered to the factory, you get one full train of goods outputting from the factory. So you basically double every train that you make with primary resources. And now I do a bit of future planning on this peninsula. It was at this point I realized just how small the area was that I had to work with. I already had to do quite a bit of terraforming to fit the current stations on there, and I really didn't make efficient use of the space, so sometimes it's good to plan out future expansions while you don't have that much laying around. And here's another mega tip. If there's a industry that's in your way, you just place an empty station next to it, servicing only that. And the fact that you're not servicing the station will slowly bring down the rating on that industry, and it'll accelerate its closure and removal from the map. And that works on pretty much any industry, either primary or secondary, and it can go quite a long way in helping you clear space for future expansions. Plus, you can see me buying up land here. This will stop any future industries from trying to prospect in this area, which ends up being pretty handy because there's not much area to work with. And that's going to bring this episode to a close. As you can see, we've got tracks going everywhere, lots of junctions, ripe to expand with more trains. And that's it. Bye bye.